What does Epitalon Peptide do? Well, we've established what Epitalon is, and if you haven't seen that video, make sure you go back and learn about the functions of Epitalon. We described what it does at a cellular level, but now the real question is, what does it actually translate into as far as outcomes? How can you feel? How do you look? How do you measure this? Does it allow us to live longer? And so we'll walk you through what the studies show, and we'll talk about what we don't know, which is we probably know more than what we don't know, and that's true with almost all these peptides. But the great thing is in personalized medicine, how Epitalon might be that bridge that helps you sleep your best. And by sleeping your best, that's when we can recover. And that's probably the most important foundational piece of your longevity pursuits is getting great sleep. I'm Regan Archibald. I'm obsessed with helping people look, feel, and perform their best at any age. I got into peptides about 12 years ago because I found that they turned on my brain in unique ways that I couldn't find elsewhere. I was using all these nootropics and they always left me kind of high and dry, too much pulsing and too many modulators for dopamine. But I found that peptides are just this gentle pulse. And as we've started applying those in our clinical work with thousands of people, we've seen dramatic improvements in their health where people have been stuck. They now find a breakthrough where people have felt like their inflammation's never going away. They're never going to be able to lose the weight, even on the GLP-1s. We found that by putting in very personalized protocols, by running the right tests, people have had massive transformations. And hopefully you're one of those. And I really appreciate you being on this channel. And so let's jump in. And by the way, I'd love to hear your experience on Epitalon as we go in there. So Epitalon is known as this telomerase enzyme. It naturally is produced in your brain. Epitalon itself is just 4 amino acids. So it's a tiny little molecule that just flips on the switch to allow the telomeres to lengthen in human cells, and that protects the DNA of the cell. And what they found in 2025, there's an independent lab that showed Epitalon did in fact produce dose-dependent telomere lengthening in normal human cell lines. That includes roughly a 26-fold increase in telomerase activity. And this is one of the few studies that replicates what Dr. Kovinson did, his group in Russia, in St. Petersburg, which matters scientifically because this replication is the bedrock of credibility when it comes to biological research. And so they found when you have telomerase expression, you're going to have longer life, fewer tumors in cancer-prone mice. In this transgenic HER2 neuro mice bred to develop breast cancer, what Epitalon is it slowed aging and suppressed spontaneous mammary tumors. In a separate long-term lifespan study, subcutaneous Epitalon increased maximum lifespan by 12.3%, and it cut leukemia incidence 6-fold. So that was pretty big. It reduced chromosome damage in bone marrow by 17% without changing food intake or body weight. And they also found that it protects the egg cells from oxidative aging. And so this is really important. Like for these mice, they found that it delayed post-ovulatory aging of the mice oocytes, the immature egg cells, and it improved mitochondrial function, lowering reactive oxygen species and damaging free radical byproducts of metabolism. The damaging free radical byproducts of metabolism. So the interesting thing about this is if you think about where all of our mitochondria are from, they're from our mothers. And so your dads have nothing to do with the mitochondria. It's all passed down by the mothers. And if you think of the health of the eggs, you want to think of that genetic expression is coming from not your mother, it's your grandmother. And so it's the food your grandmother ate that's going to have the impact on these eggs. And so what they're finding in these mice is imagine that you've used Epitalon. These are questions that I have. This is not me giving medical advice or telling you, all right, if you take this, your eggs are going to be healthier. But just looking at the mechanism of action, by using Epitalon, there's a chance that it's not the direct generation, but the generation after you, after your kids, you may be passing down healthier eggs. Now, dudes, we don't pass down any eggs. Unfortunately, this is all for the ladies. So Epitalon, not only does it help with collagen synthesis, you get better skin, less skin damage, but you get this mitochondrial boost when you protect the telomerase. And that's what they're finding in the studies. Now, it was focused more on reproductive biology than anti-aging therapy, but it's a clear mechanistic demonstration. Like, I think of longevity and I'm like, hey, I tell my kids, I incentivize them. Like, the goal for me is like, I want to live as long as I possibly can in a very young body. And then when it's time to die, I want to die really fast. But you can't do that if you're not healthy. And one of the things that Epitalon seems to be able to do is like, yes, I want to live a long life, but I also want to have family. I want to have relationships, great friendships, a deeper purpose in my life that I'm pursuing. Every decade, I become more ambitious, more clear, closer in my relationships. Man, imagine using Epitalon. This is where my daughter, her kids could benefit, and then her kids' kids, my great-grandkids. That would be very interesting because I do have my kids on cycles of Epitalon. I find it to be very helpful in helping calm down their nervous system when they're in school, they're working. They're in a very busy stage of their early 20s, and you remember the early 20s. I think the 20s, I was, averaged about 15 hours a day of work and school. It was a busy time, but I want to make sure my kids are protecting their health while they're doing some of the same activities I was. If we think about melatonin, cortisol, here's one of the studies when your melatonin and cortisol levels get dysregulated. So cortisol, you want it higher in the morning, and then you want it lower at night, and then melatonin creeps in. And so you've got this nice yin-yang balance. It's the brake and the gas pedal, as every biological system has in your body. But they found in these aged monkeys, their sleep rhythms were off. And so the researchers, they used Epitalon, and they found that it stimulated evening melatonin production, and it normalized their circadian cortisol rhythms. And so melatonin, they found that's helped them in the sleep and repair. They also found that when cortisol was more activated in the morning, that helped flush out the inflammation. And so they found that it actually helped create the foundation for healthy aging. Now, this is pretty interesting because if you think about one of the reasons why women struggle during menopause is because the adrenal glands have so much burden on them. And the adrenal glands are what are responsible for releasing epinephrine and norepinephrine and then cortisol. And one of the reasons why people don't lose weight, even if they're on GLP-1s, even if they're exercising, even if they're eating right, is because they don't have their cortisol balanced. And so using Epitalon is one of the tricks, one of the secret pathways that we've learned that helps reset that whole circadian rhythm. And I can tell you, in a lot of women who are just chasing after the right hormone structure, if you don't fix what's called the HPA axis, or that hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, if you don't correct that pathway, you're going to be bucketing water, bailing water out of a leaky ship. The very first thing you want to do is use something like Epitalon, some adaptogens like astragalus, ginseng, reishi. Those are all really good for balancing that cortisol and the melatonin cycles. But that's what we need to do first. And then you can start inputting some of the hormones. And then the hormones work better is what we've learned. So for those of you who are like, man, I love what Epitalon does, I want to learn more about it, I've got another video on all the functionality of Epitalon. So make sure you go back and watch that one. And then I've also got videos on Epitalon when it comes to sleep and anti-aging. So we'll provide a link to the show notes below. I'm Regan Archibald. Appreciate you being here.